Before we get into today's episode, I want to thank a couple sponsors that we were able to secure for this season, season 5 of the Scuttlebutt. It's exciting to be able to get sponsors for this. We're really thankful for them. The first one, you might have heard them already, is D&D Metal Recycling and Auto Salvage. The Scuttlebutt's been pairing with D&D for quite some time. D&D began as a small hauling and used auto parts operation in the Pittsburgh area in the late 1970s and has grown into a full-service metal recycling company with 2 locations, Lawrenceville and Tarentum. These are state-of-the-art scrap yards with deep roots in the community and a strong commitment to the service of their customers. D&D accepts all types of metal, both ferrous and non-ferrous, that may be generated by industrial manufacturing, construction and demolition, small commercial entities, as well as individual customers. They have a wide variety of material handling equipment and are capable of managing any job in a timely and efficient manner. You can contact them for quotes and availability at D&D, that's D and D, autosalvage.com. Thank you, D&D, for supporting this podcast. Been wonderful collaborating with you, and we're looking forward to being with you all through season 5 here. We'd also like to thank a new sponsor for the Scuttlebutt, Tobacco-Free Adagio Health. Tobacco-Free Adagio Health is dedicated to preventing and reducing tobacco use and increasing education about tobacco hazards and secondhand smoke. Of course, the best way to be tobacco-free is to never start. And we'll be sharing more about the many programs offered by Tobacco-Free Adagio Health in the future. You can check out more of their work at tobaccofree.adagiohealth. That's ADAGIO health.org. Tobaccofree.adagiohealth.org. Really excited to have sponsors on board for the Scuttlebutt, and I hope you enjoy this upcoming episode. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Scuttlebutt. I'm your host, Shaun Hall, Director of Programming with the Veterans Breakfast Club. We're a nonprofit in Western PA whose mission is to create communities of listening around veterans and their stories to connect, educate, heal, and inspire. The subtitle of the Scuttlebutt is Understanding Military Culture. As we go into the end of season 5 here and begin season 6, we're going to begin producing themed episodes every other week. And then in our off weeks, we're going to be hitting more military headlines, because I feel like there's a lot of military headlines that you have to sift through. And we want to be able to bring those to you at least every other week. Ryan will be joining me shortly to talk about some of the headlines that we've seen across the military sphere. Some are interesting, some are funny, some are more serious. But I hope that you enjoy this episode today. And if, as always, please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube so you're the first to know whenever we release new episodes every Monday. And you can always reach out to me at Shaun, SHAUN, at veteransbreakfastclub.org with any questions, thoughts, or ideas for other episodes. But anyways, enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Hall. I'm an Army veteran, and I get to help out with the Scuttlebutt. And we're doing some headlines this week. So let's just jump right in. Recent Task and Purpose article about the Marine anime style recruitment posters are going viral. So this is really interesting. If you get a chance to look at this, the artist has taken traditional U.S. Marine recruitment posters and put in anime style characters into it, which I think is like super kind of cool and kind of exciting. Anime is a thing that a lot of the younger kids are looking at. So if you're trying to get young kids in the military, you gotta use anime. That's for sure. So I think it's pretty cool. It is just interesting to see the different artwork done on it, and some of the comments and the such is very interesting to read. So it's kind of a cool look at different stuff. They've updated some of the equipment being used in some of the pictures, which is also kind of neat to see.
They certainly make them HD. I'm pulling up one here, just like, that looks like what, 1930s, 1920s even. Like, it looks really old, that recruitment poster, but updated to full HD with an anime character. What I want is like a Dragon Ball Z Goku, like, powering up. That might get me fired up enough to like sign up for the Marines. At least I would think so. If you
look at the next one down, it takes a traditional like World War I style Marine and outfits them with all this 21st century kit with all the optics and the new helmets. I thought that was looking really cool.
Do you think that long pink hair is regulation?
Absolutely not. But I can tell you, I'd probably be pretty scared of it if I saw someone, Naruto running across the field at me with.
Here's the challenge. This Halloween, I want you to be her. Get your gear out, put on a long pink wig, Be our anime poster.
Hey, man, you know, if the paycheck's good enough.
If maybe we'll make a bet, and if you don't, then I will.
Okay, gotcha.
It's good that the military is sort of opening up the playbook a bit. It's not always just Uncle Sam pointing at you. Like, we can appropriate. Is that the right word? We can appropriate some of these anime characters to help.
I think so. And you know, those people who are super interested in the Uncle Sam posters, they're joining anyway. You need to get those people on the fringe. You need to get those kids who are into alternative things and get them to join. That's what you need. You need outside the box thinkers. Military needs all that.
It's true. Well, also next headline, we are continuing on with this sort of running news story. I'm gonna take a minute here to read this out to you. This is from Task and Purpose, as this goes back all the way to our first episode of the Scuttlebutt that we've sort of reported on through the seasons, is the updates to the Bonhomme Richard fire, because that was happening as the Scuttlebutt was being first conceived and produced. But where we're at with the story at this point is the Navy will proceed with a court-martial of a junior sailor accused of setting fire to the USS Bonhomme Richard, which if you look back at season 1 episode, I did not know how to say Bonhomme Richard, and I do know now that it is a ship, not a boat. This is despite a Navy judge's recommendation against it due to the lack of evidence, according to the sailor's lawyer. Seaman apprentice Ryan Sawyer Mays was charged with hazarding a vessel and arson following a 1-year investigation by the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives and the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Mays is currently assigned to a desk job and maintains his innocence. Captain Angela Tang, who presided over the 3-day Article 32 hearing in December, told Vice Admiral Steve Kohler she perceived that the evidence she heard was not strong enough to reach the high standard of, quote, beyond a reasonable doubt that Mays is guilty. This is coming from Mays's defense attorney. The fire started the morning of July 12th, 2020, and burned for nearly 5 days while the ship was docked at Naval Base San Diego. It was wrapping up a $190 million upgrade at the time, and contractors working on it were ready to hand it back over to the Navy. And more than 60 people were injured fighting the fire, which was damaged in the excessive cost of $1.2 billion. So they weren't going to fix it. It was later scrapped, the ship. A Navy investigation into the fire preparedness of the ship, crew, and base led to recommendations that 36 Navy officials faced disciplinary action, including the head of the Naval Surface Force Pacific and the Rear Admiral who led Navy Region Southwest, as well as the ship's commander and executive officer and a host of other managers. But that doesn't mean that Mays set the fire here. Barthel, his defense attorney, argued at that third Article 32 hearing, there is no physical evidence linking Mays to the fire other than the fact that he owned a lighter. This is according to the testimony. There were no fingerprints, DNA, or video evidence found, and the witness who said he saw Mays prior to the blaze changed his story several times before finally identifying Mays as the man who entered the lower vehicle storage deck where the fire started. So that's sort of their story. They're sticking to it. We'll see how that develops. But at this point, from the Task and Purpose article, it doesn't seem like there's enough evidence to really pin it on Mays and be like, this is the guy that did it.
Yeah, and I know that what had come up previously was he was, a disgruntled, Navy seaman who, I think didn't quite make it through Navy SEAL training and wasn't really happy with his assignment at the ship. But again, that's, in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. And it doesn't seem like there's enough evidence to link him to this. And I think that's probably the first point that come. And if they can't prove it, then, you're talking about a lot of time in prison. So you have to be pretty sure that this individual certainly did this on purpose. And the other point that comes across to me is Navy ships are expensive. Like, you see those numbers, you're like, wow, like they spent all that money refurbishing it and they had to scrap it and billions of dollars. I mean, it's a tragedy. I think what I also read about that was, there were some accelerants used and they couldn't prove. And the fact that, that there were letters of reprimand that went up the chain of command is also a bit telling in the fact that, like, whether this did or did not happen caused by this person, you probably should have had better safeguards in place to make sure that the ship wouldn't be susceptible to this type of damage. Mm-hmm. So that's another part of it as well, which may be leading to why the judge is saying, like, don't pursue this case. There's not enough evidence. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate. Pretty crazy.
It is. And just along with Bonhomme Richard, the recent F-35 that hit the deck of the aircraft carrier, slid off into the South China Sea. Yeah. I mean, talking about expensive, F-35s are notoriously expensive. And a slight accident like that happens, and thank God no one was seriously injured or killed. But you lose an F-35, it's not an easy thing that you can just reach in your pocket and pay for another one.
No, that's a big no-no. You don't want to lose. You don't want those lying around. You want the
And I found something interesting about this, just to bring it up on the Scuttlebutt. I was talking with some of my other civilian friends about this. They're like, wow, like that's crazy. And it's like, yeah, but something that's interesting in talking with veterans is like the guys that were on the deck, yeah, terrifying, that thing hit flames and it goes off the other side, but those guys are all trained for that. Like they're ready at a moment's notice that if that were to happen, they are on top of it. They're ready to put out fires. They're ready to go into chaos control, damage control mode at a moment's notice. I was like, so that was something that I wanted to mention to them, my friends. Is just like, yeah, but these guys, like, they're all at the ready. Like, every plane comes in, you're not just sitting there like having a beer, maybe, definitely not having a beer on a Navy ship. But you're watching, you're waiting. So when that thing hit, those guys jumped to it. And that was another thing that I think that got glossed over a bit.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think they were trying to keep that whole thing under wraps because losing a brand new stealth fighter is never a good thing.
I lose my keys and I hear from it about it for weeks. So anyway, the next
sailing.
Yeah.
Speaking of sailing, another headline here: the Phoenix VA launches a sailing program for veterans. Very exciting. What jumped out at me about this headline was like, Phoenix is in a desert. Like, where are you sailing? Like, what's going on? But reading into it, this is part of the VA's therapy program for adaptive sports programs that look to help veterans dealing with physical conditions or mental health disorders like PTSD. I'm sure there are lakes, in Arizona where they can go sailing. And I think that this really speaks to the broadening of the VA. Trying to find new and more effective ways to provide treatment and purpose to veterans who are struggling with things like that. So I think that there's been several different places that have taken out recreational type activities like that. So I'm excited to see how it works out. I mean, the VA is certainly trying a lot of different things to make sure that veterans are taken care of in ways that fit them, right? Patient-centered care, which I think is great. So good on the VA for attempting to for rolling out these programs and finding new ways to help veterans. I think that's awesome.
Do you think, as a veteran, a lot of the sort of outdoorsy, I want to call them treatments, because that's what they're sort of set up as, it seems, and there's a fair number of organizations that invite you out and you go hunting, or they invite you out and you do campfires, you do hikes, you do the Appalachian Trail, sailing, all of these things. Do you see them as like, yeah, that those are types of things that veterans really flock to as sort of a means to like get out of their house and get into something?
I think that those that do, I think more should. And I think those that do find a sense of purpose and community that they may or may not have realized that they were missing. And that helps alleviate a lot of their other problems. So I think that they are very effective. So I've been involved in quite a few, whether it's hockey or, I rode the Greater Allegheny Passage down to DC with some veterans and different hikes and different things like that. And yeah, I think that they are, from every veteran I've spoken to who has gotten involved in things like this, it gives them a purpose, which they didn't realize they were missing, or if they do realize they're missing, they can't find a way to get engaged somewhere. So I think these types of programs are fantastic. And looking at it from the outside point of view, you're like, what's sailing going to do to help a guy with PTSD? Well, it's actually going to do a lot. It's going to, provide him with a way to focus, a way to remove himself from anxiety-inducing situations. It's going to get that veteran involved in a community and learn something new and focus on something. And they're just great. These types of programs do a lot, I think.
It develops like a different level of teamwork, because a lot of what you're missing when you leave the military is that team atmosphere. And certainly sailing is, you guys, you could do it on your own, but you have to be pretty experienced at that point. But working with a team to be able to accomplish something like that. And I say sunlight, being here in Pittsburgh, where we get 10 days of sun a year. Any bit of sunlight probably is a good thing in the long run.
Yeah.
But that leads me into sort of the next headline that I wanted to cover. This comes from military.com. The headline read, nearly 4,000 more post 9/11 vets have died in the past 20 years than anticipated, a new study finds. This is kind of what we're talking about with the idea of like getting out there, getting out of your comfort zone, joining a team or doing a sport or something that might help you. But going over the highlights here, post 9/11 veterans are dying at a higher rate than Americans overall, particularly through accidents, suicide, and homicide. A new research has found the numbers are even higher for veterans who have suffered TBI, traumatic brain injury. Veterans who have served since September 11, 2001 are dying via suicide at twice the rate of Americans overall, with homicide claiming retired service members at 1.5 times the rate of the general population. They also had a slightly higher rates of accidental deaths, according to this study that was published February 11th in JAMA, J-A-M-A, Network Open. Veterans who experienced a mild traumatic brain injury died at nearly twice the general rate for accidents from 2002 to 2018, and 3 times the rate by suicide, while those with moderate to severe brain injuries were 5 times as likely to die by suicide and faced a 3-fold risk of murdered or dying in an accident. The researchers are led by Jeffrey Howard. He's an associate professor of public health at the University of Texas at San Antonio, and they reviewed records of more than 2.5 million post 9/11 veterans to catalog their long-term health outcomes with a focus on those with a history of brain injury. They found an estimated 3,858 excess deaths among post 9/11 veterans compared with the general population. More of those deaths were attributed to accidents and homicides, which is interesting. You hear a lot about the high numbers of veteran suicides, but you don't necessarily hear about the high numbers of veteran homicides. The research found that excess deaths were concentrated among younger veterans aged 18 to 44, and those who have suffered a TBI, with suicide and accidental deaths accounting for the bulk of those deaths. You also don't really hear a lot about the accidental deaths that happen among veterans. Jeffrey, the lead researcher, called his study an awareness generating article. So it's not all doom and gloom. This is to shine a light on something that needs to be talked about. He said he hopes it places attention on the deaths among veterans that are preventable, such as accidents, suicide, and homicide, through non-medical interventions, kind of like what we were talking about recently, just now with getting out, sailing, biking, hunting. The takeaway here, he's quoted as saying, is that having these exposures puts individuals at greater risk for a variety of outcomes. So what we need to be focused on as a whole, not only within the military, within the VA, but as society in general, is supporting individuals who served our country and doing everything we can to help them transition from military service to civilian life. It's a very interesting article. I hope that you as listeners give this a read, because I agree with him that this is something that needs to be talked about, and attention that needs to be paid to it, because I feel like that should elicit more response from civilian life, civilian world, society, to help out our post 9/11 veterans.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if in the accidental deaths is included drug overdoses. I've had actually several friends of mine that I served with, pass away due to drug overdoses. These numbers don't lie, and it's something that we've talked about before. This is a cost of war, right? It's not just in the amount of money spent on the war itself, the equipment, or the deaths accounted for in the combat zone, right? There is a continuing cost for all of this, for all the treatment they get at the VA afterwards, for to those who die when they come home for a variety of reasons. And I think the author is right on to generate awareness, to get people more involved, to understand, so to have society understand what these service members have been through, I think is extremely important. And then to build that social support structure to help reintegrate those people back in, because it's not where it needs to be.
Well said. Ryan, would you like our next article?
Yeah. So there was a great video. If you're not familiar with Black Rifle Coffee Company, they do have a publication called Coffee or Die, and they went out and followed the best TACP competition, which was hosted in Texas. If you're not familiar with what a TACP is, They are Air Force special operators who they are experts in all sorts of things, but primarily air combat control, call for fire, radio communications, those sorts of things. So what you really think about them is they are specialized force multipliers that get embedded with, conventional or special operations forces to coordinate airstrikes or coordinate artillery or do all of those things. But they have to be these super tough guys and girls who also have to keep up with these, conventional units, these infantry guys, these, special forces dudes. So they host this competition to have a best TACP competition. It was really interesting watch, and really gives you an appreciation for how tough these TACPs are. And TACP stands for Tactical Air Control Party. So it's a 4-day competition where they go through obstacle courses, PT tests, land nabs, ruck marches, call for fire drills, ranges, all sorts of stuff, radio drills. And it was just really interesting to see what these professionals go through. And I thought what was really interesting was that they had been designated a weapon of war, right? So these
each individual was designated a weapon of war.
So they have this interview in the video with an Air Force colonel, and they're talking about how these TACPs are now like designated as, they are a human weapon of war. And I was like, that's a cool title. That's something that you can put on your tombstone when you're long and gone. Like,
I was a weapon of war.
Here lies Ryan, weapon of war. So it was pretty cool.
Little less than these guns.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's pretty impressive. So, just the fact that these airmen were going through so much, and what special operations forces have done over the past 20 years and how good they have gotten at their job. It was really cool to see them put their skills on display. So it's a cool video to watch. It's a cool publication, cool website to check out. So I'd encourage you to do that.
Awesome.
What do you think, Shaun? When you think of like special forces, like what envision, what comes to mind?
I have always been a sort of a nerdy fan of the one guy versus everybody type trope of Bond or Bourne or Jack Ryan, like these guys that are just like above and beyond everybody else and then go in and take everybody else. That's sort of like a different thing than I would say that TACP guys are, guys and gals are, because I think they're working as a unit. But certainly when you think of special operators, there's this sort of myth to them in our society of just like in VBC. If you're listening, if you've never heard of VBC, this podcast was created by the Veterans Breakfast Club, and we're hosting programs all the time every Monday. I say this because we have had on special operators that we've talked with, and they don't usually go into like the minute details of battles that they've been in, because those got pretty serious and not usually something that they want to relive and talk about usually, but they'll lay hints. They'll talk about some aspects of them. And the situations that these guys even allude to being into are crazy, like 1 against 10 or more, getting grabbed up by, a helicopter's taking off and you're grabbing on and as it's taking off. It's nuts. But they also have, because of that sort of little bit of secrecy, I think that's really sort of developed this interesting myth to them of like, what are they really doing? These special operators that are going in behind enemy lines or it's tip of the spear. I think they are badass, like just badass. I can't imagine doing anything that anybody does in the military simply from a civilian perspective. But certainly these guys that, will get dropped out in the middle behind enemy lines and have to like figure it out. They have a mission and figure it out over the next couple of days. And hopefully we see you on the other side. I can't even put myself into the mindset of what you got to prep yourself for to do that. So certainly tip my hat and just honor and respect to every single one of them. It seems like all of them should get a Medal of Honor simply for just deciding to do that. Because I find it just absolutely crazy. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I think you're right on. I think when you got some of the special operators that I've had the privilege of working with in the past, they all have like the same personality type, right? And what they're looking for in those guys is, to be able to do what you just said, just figure it out, right? Like they want those types of thinkers. Like you're not bound by doctrine or nobody's going to tell you exactly what to do. They're going to put you in a place, they're going to give you a mission, and they're going to let you go about it. And all those guys have that just in spades, right? Mm-hmm. they're just kind of like free thinkers, and okay, this doesn't work, I'm not going to use this piece of military gear, I'm going to use this because this works better for what I'm trying to do, and we're going to do it this way. And they're and
it's
they're
very
just
MacGyver.
just very MacGyver, very just so impressive in their physical ability, right? Just every single one of them just could outrun you in full gear, and you'd be in gym shorts, and they would just take off, and you'd never catch them.
Right.
They're awesome.
And what I found interesting is that stays with them even outside of service. Like, we talked with some guys who were in their 70s, 80s who are still out there just running, just like driven. And that's just like the mindset of who they are, even probably before they were in the military, just driven to do that. And I found that in, or the one gentleman was doing a triathlon, and, he's 80, and it's like, you're doing a triathlon, you're 80. Wow. Like, okay. I am in awe of that. It's incredible to talk with these guys. But also I think in the other side of that is veterans who kind of were just there, never left, the fob, or never went beyond the wire. Kind of look at those guys maybe and see, like, I didn't do that, so I really shouldn't tell my story. But, that's something we've also learned at VBC, is that, like, every veteran has a story. So these guys might have, like, I'd say the crazy stories of the things they got themselves involved in, but that doesn't make their story, I think, any more important than the guys who never left the wire. But to our audience, we're going to be doing more of these news updates, Ryan and I, coming up in our season 6, as we are going to be wrapping up season 5 here in the next month. But you can always like, share, subscribe, ring the bell on YouTube, and you can always reach out to me at Shaun, SHAUN, at veteransbreakfastclub.org. Always interested to hear your thoughts and comments. And if you have an idea for a Ryan Rants, make sure you send it along to me, because we will certainly take that under consideration. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of the Scuttlebutt.
See you guys.